Hi Graeme, thank you so much for joining us at RMB to chat to us a little bit around the trends to watch for in 2025. Something you referred to as, the elephants in the room. And maybe not to turn you into, a fortune teller or anything, but what would you say is the one thing that if we don't pay attention to in 10 or 15 years' time as the world or even as the country, we would be, embarrassed about?
What a great question, because of course we can't predict what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now. I mean, even 10 days from now feels a little bit unpredictable. And we do live in a world where just politically, economically, culturally, things are just moving at tremendous pace. But we can't lose sight of that longer term picture. So I think some of the obvious answers to your question would be, climate change. We know that we should be doing more as a society, but it's difficult for us as individuals to do more.
So Graeme, you spoke to us a little bit around the elephants in the room. Could you explain to us what those are?
Yeah, and the reason we say they're elephants in the room is we're not trying to predict some big forces that nobody's ever thought about 20 years from now, as much as that can be interesting. But we're actually saying the most important things we should be thinking about are already here. Like climate change is one, like our well-being and all the rest. And so for us, the work that we do with our clients now is saying, this stuff's already here. The question is, are you taking it seriously enough? And are you seeing the opportunities? So the 7 elephants in the room sitting there waiting to be noticed are angry people, and then the angry planet. Then we have aging and demographic shifts. Then multipolarity, that's the shift in global geopolitics from America dominating to America declining and other parts like the BRICS nations coming out as new geopolitical centers of power. Then we've got inequality, big squeezes, which has just got to do with like everything just being harder. Inflation and supply chain and all the rest. It just feels harder and squeezed in the world that we live in. And then, if I haven't forgotten any of them, then we talk about technology. And I don't really believe we've got proper artificial intelligence yet, but we've got intelligent assistance. And we need to use technology not to replace us and automate us out of the system, but to augment us so humans and technology work well together. And for me, those 7 things sum up the key priorities in the world in the next few years.
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing is that as society and as business, we know how to actually take advantage of the opportunities that these elephants present. One of the things that you mentioned is that often the greatest opportunities happen within chaotic environments and situations. How can organizations in general take advantage of some of these elephants in the room and to create the future that we are headed towards?
And for me, that's the key. So our brains are programmed to look for the threat, the downside. Let's take the angry planet. You just list all the things that could go wrong and you're like desperate, oh my word. But then you begin to say, okay, yes, let's deal with the threats as we can, but are there opportunities in that? And so a good example would be in South Africa, we had this problem of load shedding. It's gone away for a few months now, luckily, but who knows how fragile our energy ecosystem is. But we've had load shedding for 14 years already. And most people that I know only put a energy solution into their homes last year, 2 or 3 years ago. So we spent a decade, I don't know what, just hoping and praying that something would happen to fix it and not taking the future into our own hands. Now I start saying to people, do you think water might be next on the list? That in a country that's already water scarce, we might have a water problem. Everybody nods exactly like you're doing now. And then I ask, so when did you put your water solution in? And everybody's like, maybe I should. And that's what we do as human beings. We see the threat and sometimes mitigate against it, but we are always so late for the opportunity. And then if you look at it from the bank's perspective, what's the opportunity then for the bank to be part of creating solutions. At minimum, financing some of these solutions, but at best, taking some of your data capabilities and incorporating those into smart homes and smart facilities and smart infrastructure. And then hopefully people begin to see, the opportunity mindset, the creativity flows from there.
So after all of these themes that we've explored, Graeme, what is the call to action?
Yeah, like what must we do, right? And I suppose part of the problem that we have is that you can look at all of these elephants in the room and go, good grief, I just hope they don't stampede because they'll trample me. And that can be the case. We can just look and say, well, I'm just caught up in all of this chaos and noise and there's nothing I can do and just carry on with my life. But I don't believe that that should be our response. What I try and do with the work I do, I hope that's what people get out of my message, is that it is a cliche quote from Abraham Lincoln, but the best way to predict the future is to create it. And we might not be the richest people in the world who can influence governments and policies. But what we can do is we can just, in our environments, whether it's in our families, the schools our kids go to, the faith organizations we're part of, the workplace that we're in, we could look at those 7 things and say, can we just make a little improvement? On the angry people, if people are frustrated and stressed, if you're the leader of a team, can you just take mental health and wellness just a bit more seriously? If you can make a little difference in the 10 people who you lead, you will be changing the world. And if we can look after the older people in our society better, we'll do that. And if you can do something that will mitigate climate change, that will help. Every little piece will help. And so we need to come with both an opportunity mindset and an excitement for the future. And then realize we each can do little things in our own way, in our own worlds, that will eventually all add up to changing the system. I believe a better world is possible, and I hope everybody else joins me in creating it.
Thank you so much, Graeme.